The stars glimmered faintly in the vastness of space, their cold light overshadowed by the brewing tension aboard the Resolute Venture, where the ordinary teetered on the edge of the extraordinary. The mining vessel Resolute Venture drifted near an asteroid, its crew performing a routine mission so unremarkable it barely deserved mention. Captain Lena Voss leaned forward slightly, her fingers tapping the console as her sharp eyes scanned the holographic display. The subtle clench of her jaw hinted at the tension simmering beneath her composed exterior. The hum of the ship's systems and the occasional murmur of her crew over the comms filled the small bridge. She stared at the holographic display in front of her, cataloging the mineral yields from the asteroid below. Low-grade titanium, some nickel, traces of iridium, muttered Owen, her chief engineer, from his station. His voice carried a mix of boredom and irritation. "We're scraping the bottom of the barrel here, Captain. We knew this wasn't going to be a jackpot," Lena replied, her tone even. "Finish the sweep and pack it up. We'll set course for the next rock." Before Owen could respond, the ship's proximity alarms blared. The holographic display flared red, highlighting an incoming object. The crew snapped to attention, their idle chatter replaced by urgent calculations. "What the hell is that?" Lena barked, her feet hitting the floor as she straightened in her seat. "Unidentified vessel," Owen said, his fingers flying over his console. "Coming in fast. Looks like it's armed." The ship's comms crackled to life, and a guttural voice filled the bridge. It was alien, harsh and grating, though translated into recognizable speech by the ship's linguistic algorithms. "Humans aboard the mining vessel, surrender immediately. Your vessel and cargo are now property of the Catharic Dominion. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Lena's jaw tightened as she exchanged a glance with Owen. The Catharic were known throughout the sector, a race of aggressive opportunists who preyed on vulnerable ships. Their tactics were brutal, and their demands left no room for negotiation. "Options?" Lena asked, her voice calm despite the situation. "We're outgunned and outclassed," Owen replied grimly. "Our shields wouldn't hold against their first volley. Running isn't an option either, they'd catch us before we even warmed up the engines." "Great," Lena muttered, her mind racing. "Open the comms. Let's see if we can buy some time." The alien voice crackled again as Lena spoke, her tone measured. "This is Captain Lena Voss of the Resolute Venture. We're an unarmed civilian vessel conducting routine mining operations. There's nothing of value here. Surely, we can resolve this without violence." There was a pause, then a chilling laugh. "Your compliance is irrelevant, Captain. Resistance will result in annihilation. Prepare to be boarded. The Catharic Dominion does not negotiate with prey." A cold dread settled over the crew as Lena closed the comms. "They're not interested in talking. Looks like we're doing this the hard way." "The hard way?" Owen asked incredulously. "We're miners, not soldiers." "Then it's time we got creative," Lena said, her eyes narrowing. "Get everyone to secure the cargo bay. If they're boarding us, that's where they'll go first." The ship shuddered as a docking clamp latched onto its hull. The Catharic vessel loomed in the viewport, its angular design bristling with weaponry. The crew scrambled to fortify their positions, armed with little more than mining tools and improvised weapons. Lena and Owen joined the others in the cargo bay, the tension palpable. They could hear the grinding of metal as the Catharic began cutting through the hatch. Moments later, the door burst open, and a squad of heavily armed aliens stormed in. The Catharic were an imposing sight, their exoskeletal armor gleaming under the harsh lights. They raised their weapons, barking commands in their guttural language. Lena stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Wait," she said, her voice steady. "We don't want any trouble. Take what you want and leave us in peace." The lead alien sneered, his mandibles clicking as he pointed his weapon at her. "You are in no position to bargain, human." Lena's expression hardened. "You're right," she said. "But you might want to reconsider." The alien's eyes narrowed in suspicion, but before he could respond, a deafening roar filled the cargo bay. A massive crate, rigged to a makeshift pulley system, came crashing down from the ceiling, scattering the invaders. The crew sprang into action, wielding their mining tools with surprising ferocity. Lena seized a plasma cutter and lunged at the nearest alien, the device's hum slicing through the chaos. Her movements were sharp and precise, every step driven by the raw determination to survive. Owen swung a heavy wrench, knocking another off balance. The crew fought with a desperation born of survival, their makeshift weapons proving surprisingly effective against the invaders' bulky armor. The Catharach, caught off guard by the humans' resistance, began to falter. One by one, they were driven back, their arrogance giving way to panic. The leader snarled in frustration, rallying his troops for a counterattack, but it was too late. The humans, united by their determination, overwhelmed them. As the last of the invaders were subdued, Lena stood in the center of the cargo bay, her chest heaving. She surveyed the scene, her crew battered but victorious. The Catharach lay bound and disarmed, their pride shattered. "Is that it?" Lena asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "I expected more from the mighty Catharach Dominion." The alien leader glared at her, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "You'll regret this, human," he growled. "Our fleet will come for you." Lena leaned in, her expression cold. "Let them. We'll be ready." The crew erupted in cheers, their triumph fueling their defiance. For the first time, the Catharach had miscalculated, their arrogance crumbling under a relentless human ingenuity and defiance that turned the tide with unexpected ferocity. As the humans secured their prisoners and assessed the damage, Lena couldn't help but feel a spark of pride. They had faced the impossible and emerged stronger for it. But even as they celebrated, a shadow loomed on the horizon. The Catharach leader's warning lingered in Lena's mind. This was just the beginning, and she knew the real battle was yet to come. The aftermath of the skirmish left the crew of the Resolute Venture buzzing with adrenaline, their wariness tempered by an undercurrent of grim determination. The faint hum of the ship's systems mingled with the sharp metallic scent of overheated circuits. The Catharach invaders were securely bound in the cargo bay, their weapons confiscated and stashed in a sealed storage locker. Lena stood at the edge of the room, her arms crossed tightly. Her sharp gaze lingered on the captured aliens, the faint tap of her boot against the floor betraying the gears turning in her mind. "What do we do with them now?" Owen asked, his face still streaked with sweat and grime from the fight. He held a makeshift stun baton tightly in his hand, unwilling to let his guard down. "We need answers," Lena replied. "Find out why they targeted us. There's no way this was random." The Catharach leader, a hulking figure with a deep scar running across his exoskeletal face, glared at Lena with defiance. Despite his restraints, he exuded an air of menace that made the crew uneasy. "You believe this minor skirmish matters," he growled, his guttural voice carrying an undertone of contempt. His mandibles twitched slightly, a subtle yet menacing sign of his rising anger. "This was only a scouting party. The Dominion will not rest until you are ashes." Lena stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "If that's the case, you might want to start talking. Otherwise, you'll find yourself jettisoned into the void before reinforcements arrive." The alien sneered but remained silent. Owen shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between Lena and the Catharach prisoners. "Captain, what's the plan if they—" Before he could finish, the ship's comms crackled to life. A distorted voice echoed through the bridge, the language alien but unmistakably urgent. The crew exchanged nervous glances as Lena hurried to the comm station. "What is it?" Owen asked, trailing behind her. Lena activated the translator, and the voice resolved into words. "This is the Catharach Dominion battleship Voracious Fang. Release our scouting party immediately, or we will destroy your vessel." The room fell into an uneasy hush, the crew exchanging tense glances. Lena's thoughts raced as the Dominion's threat seemed to press down on them like an oppressive weight, its gravity undeniable. Lena's mind raced, evaluating their options. The Resolute Venture was a mining vessel, not a warship. They had no chance against a fully armed battleship. "They're bluffing," Owen said, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "They wouldn't risk losing their own men." "They might if it means making an example of us," Lena replied. She turned to the rest of the crew. "Secure the ship. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. If they want a fight, we'll make them work for it." The crew scrambled to their stations, the tension palpable. Lena returned to the cargo bay, her gaze locking onto the Catharic leader. "Your friends are eager to get you back," she said. "What makes you so important?" The alien smirked. "I'm their commander. Without me, their invasion plans falter. But your defiance changes nothing. The Dominion will come." "Invasion plans?" Lena's voice sharpened. "What invasion plans?" The alien refused to answer, his mandibles clicking in what Lena assumed was a gesture of defiance. She clenched her fists, frustration boiling just beneath the surface. "Captain," Owen's voice crackled over the intercom, "we've got incoming. Multiple signatures. Looks like fighters." Lena's stomach dropped. She rushed to the bridge, her boots pounding against the metal deck. The display showed a formation of small, agile ships closing in on their position. The voracious Fang loomed in the background, its silhouette menacing. "Evasive maneuvers," Lena ordered. "Deploy decoys and prepare to vent the ore cargo. It might buy us some time." The ship lurched as Owen executed a sharp roll, the fighters' weapons missing by meters. The crew worked in frantic synchronization, their fear outweighed by their determination. "Decoys deployed," said MIA, the ship's navigation officer. "They're splitting up to chase them." Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. "Good. Now let's see if we can outmaneuver the rest." The Resolute Venture weaved through the asteroid field, its bulky frame groaning under the strain of sharp maneuvers. Sparks flew from overstressed joints, and faint cracks spidered across the viewport as the nimble fighters closed in. Yet Lena and her crew used the terrain to their advantage, skimming dangerously close to rock formations to force the pursuers to slow down. "Incoming torpedo," Owen warned. "Deploy countermeasures," Lena snapped. The ship's automated defenses launched flares, detonating the torpedo prematurely. The explosion rocked the vessel, but it held steady. Lena gripped the console, her knuckles white. "They're herding us," MIA said, her voice tight. "Pushing us toward open space." Lena's mind raced. In open space, the battleship's superior firepower would decimate them. They needed an edge, something unexpected. Her gaze flicked to the holographic display, scanning the asteroid field for inspiration. "There," she said, pointing to a massive asteroid with a network of tunnels. "Head for that rock. If we can get inside, we might be able to lose them." Owen didn't hesitate, steering the ship toward the asteroid. The fighters followed, their weapons peppering the Resolute Venture's shields. Sparks flew as systems overloaded, and alarms blared. "Shields at 30%, MIA reported." "Just a little further," Lena urged. The ship plunged into the asteroid's tunnels, the walls closing in around them. The fighters hesitated, their pilots wary of the tight quarters. Lena's heart pounded as Owen navigated the labyrinth, each turn a gamble. "They're falling back," MIA said, relief creeping into her voice. Lena exhaled sharply, but the moment was short-lived. The battleship loomed on the display, positioning itself near the asteroid's exit. It was a trap. "They're not giving up," Owen muttered. Lena's eyes narrowed. "Then neither are we. Prepare the ore cannons. If they want a fight, let's give them one they'll remember." The crew worked with frantic precision, modifying the ship's mining equipment into makeshift weapons. Lena's plan was risky, bordering on reckless, but it was their best shot. As the Resolute Venture emerged from the asteroid's tunnels, the Catharic battleship opened fire. The ship shuddered under the barrage, but Lena held her ground. "Fire the ore cannons," she commanded. The modified equipment roared to life, sending dense ore fragments hurtling through space with surprising velocity. The fragments struck the battleship's shields with a deafening crack, drawing gasps of astonishment and cheers from the crew as the Dominion vessel faltered. The improvised projectiles struck with surprising force, tearing through the Dominion ship's shields and puncturing its hull. "Direct hit," Owen reported, his voice filled with awe. The battleship faltered, its weapons systems flickering. Lena seized the opportunity. "Full speed ahead," she ordered. "Let's get out of here while they're licking their wounds." The Resolute Venture surged forward, its engines straining as it left the asteroid field behind. The Dominion fighters broke off their pursuit, returning to the crippled battleship. As the stars stretched into streaks of light and the ship entered hyperspace, the crew erupted into cheers. Lena allowed herself a small smile, but her mind remained focused. "This isn't over," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "We've bought ourselves time, but the Dominion won't forget this." Owen approached, his expression a mix of exhaustion and admiration. "What now, Captain?" Lena glanced at the holographic display, her resolve hardening. "Now, we prepare. If the Dominion wants a fight, we'll be ready." The tension aboard the Resolute Venture was palpable as hyperspace streaks faded back into pinpricks of light. The faint hum of the ship's systems underscored the crew's collective unease, with Owen's furrowed brow and Mia's white-knuckled grip on the console revealing the weight of the moment. Lena and her crew had earned a brief respite, but the victory was far from complete. They had evaded the Dominion's immediate wrath, but the shadow of retaliation loomed large. "Damage report," Lena commanded, her voice steady despite the knot of anxiety in her chest. "Shields down to 15%, Owen replied from the engineering console, his fingers racing over the controls. Behind him, sparks flew from a damaged panel, accompanied by the sharp crackle of overloaded circuits. The acrid smell of burnt wiring stung the air, making the crew's already tense breaths hitch. "Engines are holding, but the reactor's taking a beating. We'll need to shut it down for repairs soon." "Soon isn't an option," Lena muttered. She glanced at the holographic display, the stars around them uncomfortably static. "What about the Dominion fleet?" "No sign of pursuit," MIA reported, though her tone carried little relief. "If they're smart, they're regrouping. We've bought time, not safety." "We'll take what we can get," Lena said, her voice hardening. "MIA, find us a place to lay low and make repairs. Owen, prioritize shielding and propulsion. I want us ready to move if they show up." The crew dispersed to their tasks, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts. She stared at the tactical display, the captured Catharic leader's words echoing in her mind. This was only a scouting party. What kind of force would follow? And how could they hope to survive it? Her thoughts were interrupted by Owen's voice over the intercom. "Captain, you'll want to see this." Lena hurried to the engineering bay, where Owen was examining a small device he'd pulled from one of the Catharic weapons. The alien tech hummed faintly, its design sleek and unfamiliar. "What is it?" Lena asked, leaning over his shoulder. "Some kind of tracker," Owen replied. "It's embedded in their weapons. My guess is they've been pinging our location since the fight." Lena's stomach sank. "How long do we have?" "Hard to say," Owen admitted. "If they're efficient, maybe hours. Less if they've already got reinforcements nearby," Owen said, his jaw tightening as he avoided meeting Lena's gaze. "Destroy it," Lena ordered, stepping back as Owen dismantled the device. The realization that their location might already be compromised sent a fresh wave of urgency through her. As Owen worked, a sharp beep sounded from the bridge. Lena rushed back, her heart pounding. Mia's face was pale as she pointed to the display. "Incoming signatures," MIA said. 3 ships. Dominion frigates. "Damn it," Lena hissed. "Owen, how's that reactor?" "It'll hold for now, but not under heavy fire," Owen replied. "Then we can't let them get close," Lena said. "MIA, plot an evasive course. Let's see if we can lose them in that debris field." The Resolute Venture lurched as MIA pushed the engines to their limit. The debris field ahead was dense with the remnants of ancient battles, a graveyard of shattered ships and twisted metal. Glints of light reflected off fractured hulls, casting eerie shadows through the cockpit. The slow drift of debris created an oppressive sense of dread, each piece a silent reminder of past battles. It was risky, but Lena saw no other choice. "They're closing in," MIA reported. "One of them is deploying fighters." Lena's mind raced. "We need to split them up. Launch decoys and prepare to vent the remaining ore. We'll use it to create a smokescreen." The crew worked with frantic precision. Decoys launched from the ship's aft, drawing 2 of the frigates away. At Lena's command, Owen vented the ore, the dense particles forming a shimmering cloud that masked their movements. "It's working," MIA said. "But the 3rd frigate is still on us." "Bring up the ore cannons," Lena ordered. Let's give them something to think about. The makeshift weapon fired, sending another barrage of fragments toward the pursuing frigate. The projectiles struck true, disabling its forward shields and forcing it to pull back. But the respite was short-lived. The other two frigates had regrouped and were closing in fast. "They're boxing us in," Owen warned. "Not if we punch through," Lena said, her jaw set. "MIA, take us toward that derelict cruiser. If we time it right, we can use it as cover." The Resolute Venture barreled toward the massive wreck, its engines straining. The frigates pursued relentlessly, their weapons lighting up the void. As they neared the cruiser, Lena spotted a breach in its hull large enough to fit their ship. "Take us in," Lena commanded. The Resolute Venture dove into the breach, its engines straining against the ship's weight. Behind them, the frigates hesitated, their captains wary of the labyrinth of wreckage ahead. On the Resolute Venture, MIA let out a shaky breath, while Owen exchanged a tense glance with Lena, both acutely aware of the momentary reprieve. Inside, the derelict was a maze of twisted corridors and collapsing bulkheads. The crew navigated with white-knuckled precision, using the environment to evade their pursuers. "They're not following us," MIA said, her voice a mix of relief and disbelief. Lena's relief was short-lived. The tactical display showed the frigates moving to encircle the derelict, cutting off their escape routes. "They're trapping us," Owen said grimly. "Then we'll turn their trap against them," Lena replied. "Owen, can we rig the reactor to overload? Use it as a distraction?" Owen hesitated. "It's risky. If we're too close when it blows." "We won't be," Lena said firmly. "Get it ready. MIA, find us an exit." The crew worked against the clock, every second feeling like an eternity. Owen rigged the reactor while MIA identified a narrow corridor leading back to open space. As the frigates closed in, Lena gave the order. "Now." The Resolute Venture shot out of the derelict just as the reactor detonated. The explosion ripped through the cruiser in a blinding flash, the shockwaves slamming into the Resolute Venture and sending debris spiraling outward. The crew braced against consoles, their ears ringing as the ship's hull groaned in protest. The Resolute Venture shuddered violently as the blast's force reached them, while one frigate's hull crumpled under the pressure, forcing the others to scatter. Lena gripped the console as the ship shuddered, her heart pounding. "We're clear," MIA said, her voice shaky with relief. Lena exhaled, her shoulders sagging. "Good work, everyone. Set a course for the nearest safe zone. We need time to regroup." As the ship entered hyperspace once more, Lena allowed herself a moment to breathe. The Dominion had underestimated them again, but she knew their reprieve was temporary. They would come back, stronger and more prepared. "This isn't over," she muttered, steeling herself for what was to come. "But neither are we." The Resolute Venture emerged from hyperspace, its battered hull glinting faintly under the light of a distant star. The low hum of its struggling engines and the faint crackle of damaged circuits filled the bridge, where the crew's slumped shoulders and tired eyes told the story of their ordeal. The crew had escaped with their lives, but the weight of the ordeal lingered in every corner of the ship. Lena stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the edge of the console as she surveyed the tactical display. For now, they were alone. "Status report," she called, her voice steady despite the tension etched on her face. "Shields are holding at 10%, Owen replied from the engineering station, his voice tight with strain. The flickering readouts cast erratic shadows across his face, and the occasional pop of a struggling capacitor punctuated the tense silence. "Engines stable, but we're running on fumes. We'll need to find a safe harbor soon." "Any signs of pursuit?" Lena asked, turning to MIA. The navigator shook her head. "Nothing on sensors. If the Dominion is still after us, they're not close enough to matter. For now." Lena exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "Good. Let's keep it that way. Owen, prioritize repairs to propulsion and shields. MIA, keep scanning for any nearby systems that might offer supplies or refuge." The crew nodded, dispersing to their stations. The bridge fell quiet, save for the hum of the ship's systems. Lena remained at the console, her thoughts drifting to the captured Catharic leader. He had been defiant to the end, convinced that the Dominion's power was unassailable. But Lena knew better. Power wasn't absolute. It was fragile, held together by perception and fear. And today, they had shaken it. "Captain," Mia's voice broke through her reverie. "There's a small settlement on a nearby moon. It's not much, but it has basic repair facilities and might have fuel." "Set a course," Lena ordered. "Let's hope they're friendly." The ship veered toward the moon, its engines groaning under the strain. As they approached, the settlement came into view, a cluster of prefabricated structures nestled in a crater, with a few small ships docked on the surface. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark a glimmer of hope in the crew. The settlement's prefabricated structures, with their weathered exteriors and faintly glowing lights, hinted at safety amid their harrowing journey. Lena and Owen disembarked, their steps heavy as they approached the settlement's central hub. A handful of settlers greeted them cautiously, their expressions a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Lena quickly explained their situation, emphasizing their need for repairs and fuel. "We don't get many visitors out here," an older man said, his weathered face betraying years of hard living. "But you're welcome to what we've got. Just don't bring trouble with you." "We'll make sure of that," Lena replied with a faint smile. The settlers proved true to their word, their cautious demeanor softening as they worked alongside the crew. Stories of surviving harsh moons and skirmishes with raiders flowed under the dim lights of the workshop, punctuated by the rhythmic clang of tools on metal. Owen worked tirelessly alongside the settlement's mechanic, patching up the ship's damaged systems. Meanwhile, Lena took the opportunity to rest, her exhaustion catching up with her at last. But her reprieve was short-lived. "Captain," Mia's voice crackled over the comm, "we've picked up something on long-range sensors. It's faint, but it's moving fast. Could be Dominion." Lena's jaw tightened. She hurried back to the ship, where Owen and MIA were already preparing for a quick departure. "How much time do we have?" Lena asked. "Not long," MIA replied. "Maybe 20 minutes before they're in range." Lena turned to Owen. "Are we ready to fly?" "Barely," he admitted. "But it'll have to do." The crew scrambled to their stations, the ship groaning as it powered up. The settlers watched from a distance, their expressions unreadable. As the Resolute Venture lifted off, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The Dominion ship appeared on sensors moments later, its sleek silhouette cutting through the void like a predator on the hunt. But this time, Lena had a plan. She activated the comms, her voice calm and measured as she addressed the crew. "We're not running this time," she said. "If they want us, they'll have to earn it. Owen, bring the ore cannons online. MIA, plot a course through that asteroid field. Let's see if we can't even the odds." The crew responded with grim determination, their fear replaced by a fierce resolve. The ship plunged into the asteroid field, the Dominion vessel close behind. Lena maneuvered with precision, using the terrain to her advantage. The ore cannons fired relentlessly, each shot forcing their pursuer to adjust course. Finally, as the Dominion ship closed in, Lena's eyes locked on a massive asteroid ahead. Her mind raced as she calculated the timing, her adrenaline-fueled commands cutting through the tense silence. Around her, the crew exchanged nervous but determined glances, trusting her instincts. A massive asteroid loomed ahead, its surface riddled with cracks and fissures. She brought the ship around, drawing the enemy closer. "Owen, target that fissure," she ordered. "Full power." The ore cannons roared to life, their thunderous blasts shaking the ship to its core. The projectiles smashed into the asteroid with a deafening crack, unleashing shockwaves that made the hull groan as shards of rock exploded outward, forcing everyone on board to brace themselves. The fissure erupted, sending massive chunks of rock hurtling outward. The Dominion ship attempted to evade, but the debris tore through its hull, ripping it apart in a spectacular explosion. The crew erupted in cheers, their victory hard-won and well-deserved. Lena allowed herself a moment to breathe, her gaze fixed on the debris field as it drifted into silence. "Is it over?" MIA asked, her voice tentative. Lena nodded slowly. "For now. But the Dominion won't forget this. We've made ourselves a target, and we'll have to be ready for whatever comes next." As the ship emerged from the asteroid field, the crew began to repair and regroup. They had survived against impossible odds, proving that even in the face of overwhelming power, resilience and ingenuity could triumph. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Lena allowed herself a small, genuine smile. "Set a course for home," she said, her voice steady but laced with relief. As the crew exchanged weary smiles, Lena's thoughts drifted to what home meant: a place to regroup, to heal, and to prepare for the challenges ahead. The weight of their survival settled alongside a quiet, unshakable resolve.